hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and you're about to listen to a guest episode of The Hypnotist, where I chat to Bob Burns, who is a bit of a legend in the hypnosis world and has had a very distinguished career, and he's most well known for the Swan Protocol, which is a way of communicating directly with the unconscious through idiomotor responses by having the arm shaped like a swan. He's very well known for that. And also Claudia Rickard, who is the creator of the bunny talk process. And she uses almost like the anchoring and the shape of a bunny in a shadow puppet style to, again, enable and facilitate communication change, but also to anchor very safe, childlike feelings. So this is a conversation with both of them, because in early January, they're hosting an event in Southampton, the south of England on the south coast, where they're going to be teaching you about the Swan Protocol and the bunny talk process all in one action-packed day. The link to that event is going to be in the description. So if you like the idea of learning more about the Swan or the bunny talk process and all of their special things they've got going on that day, have a listen to this conversation, but definitely do check out that link to explore their event. Hopefully you get some value from this this session. Let me know in the comments if you like it when I interview these kind of experts and other hypnotherapists on my show. Hopefully you like my hypnotherapy, but it's also good for you to learn from other hypnotherapists as well. So relax and enjoy this session.
Okay.
Hi, it's Adam here, and welcome to today's episode of The Hypnotist, where today I'm joined by two very special guests, Bob Burns and Claudia Rickard. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Adam.
Great to have you here, because I've had both of you on the show individually, but never together. So what's behind this collaboration?
Oh, I'll let you go, Bob.
Well, from my part, it's just a lust thing, really. No, we got together some time ago. I had a look at Claudia's bunny system. That's what I called it at the time. I didn't know much about it. I watched it, and I kind of liked it. You know that in this business, a lot of people say, "What do you think of this?" They show you what they've got. You're normally well monitored. You say it's very nice, well done, and I've learned over the years to do and say things like that. But every now and again, you get something you think, "Oh, there really is something in this." So I had a look at hers. I know it's exploded in America already. And so we got involved in that. We got involved in her bunny system. I know the story. She might get involved in that today or not. I'm not sure. And I liked it. I liked the way the whole thing came together. So really, that's it. The whole bunny process of Claudia, I really liked. And now we're considering, in fact, planning taking her over here to the UK. Her English is still good, so why not? Yeah, that's it.
I still pass for English. There you go.
So we've got a Scot living in England, and we've got an English woman living in the States. So we're kind of very multinational at the moment. As some background for those people not familiar with either of you, Bob, do you want to give a bit of an introduction to yourself and what you're most well known for?
Well, I'll keep it very, very short. I hypnotized my first person in 1973, so I've been doing this for a long time. But I've always been a full-time therapist, mainly in the therapy room, although I did some training. I've done lots of hypnosis shows over the years, mainly in Europe and what have you. But I've always been mainly a therapist. Then I fell across something about 10 years ago, a thing called the Swan, which just exploded without any marketing. I never realized what was going on. Then I started getting requests from people. And now the Swan, this little system I've got, it works in it. Certainly the last time we looked, it's over 85 countries around the world with lots of therapists. And that's what I did. Of course, when COVID came along, all that stopped. I used to do 10 workshops a year. 7 roughly local here in the UK, so I could get back to work by Monday morning. But I would do maybe 3 long hauls a year. COVID killed all of that, and that's okay. That's it killed all of that for everybody. So you have to smile and say, interesting little thing that's happened here. So now I'm mainly doing therapy in the therapy room, which I like, but also I'm mainly retired more than anything now. I'm 74 now. I'm taking it easy. Luckily for me, Claudia likes older men, so I'm back involved again doing some hypnosis stuff, and we'll see what happens there. So I still do think I've got one on next week, in fact, with the lovely Pete Dalton. So I'm doing one online for 2 days. But now that I'm getting a wee bit on, I start at 12, I finish at 4:30. I think 4.5 day sounds really 4.5 hour day sounds really good to me. But mainly that's it. I'm a hypnotherapist, and I discovered this thing called the Swan, and it kind of took off. And that's it in a very scattered nutshell. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anyone in the hypnotherapy, if they were to kind of make this kind of posture with their hand and their elbow, they would immediately kind of recognize that as the Swan Protocol, by yourself. And I think, people talk about idiomotor responses and the unconscious. Why do you think that particular kind of shape of the hand in that way is a good vehicle for, let's say, unconscious change?
I think it just fits because I discovered it by accident. Everything in this world has been put forward by someone. It's an idea. The Swan with me was an accident where I was leaning in the back of the chair and I happened to look at my hand exactly in that shape. And I said, my God, aloud, I said, you look like a swan, don't you? And my hand somehow did this. It nodded towards me. What's going on? So that, in fact, goes through the whole thing. People find it easy to put their elbow on something next to them. Their hand flops like that. I even tell them, don't hold it. I know it's called the Swan, but don't hold it. Let it flop. No one with a chance of working. Then from there, it looks like, and people can be forgiven. People will often say, it's an idiomotor response, as if it's only an idiomotor response. But the Swan goes much, much deeper in many, many ways that people know about. The third part of the Swan is where we call direct voice, when I ask the Swan to speak to me, and the person who's not hypnotized in any way, shape, or form looks at me as if I'm an idiot, and then from inside their gut comes, "Hello, Mr. Burns," and the whole room goes silent. Then the fun begins. Yeah? That's where it turns into something else, and it turns into something else not through me, not through the therapist. It's through something else that we maybe haven't even recognized yet. I haven't recognized yet. It's a part within us that's always been there, sitting, waiting, watching, and saying, recognize me, tweak me, poke me, and see what happens. So again, that's kind of it. Although it's simple, but it's very complicated for me enough.
Yeah. And I think a lot of therapeutic, kind of protocols have this idea of, an unconscious, a superconscious, a higher self, like all of these kind of things that are different kind of parts of us. And when I first learned about this one, I thought there must be an element in the same way that if you hold like a pendulum, you can pick up more subtle idiomotor responses. The position of the hand and it being very flexible, because it's a different shape, you're going to notice kind of twitches and kind of movements much more subtly than you would do if it was kind of positioned, kind of flat like that. I also imagine that in a world where a lot of sessions are on Zoom, it's easier to pick up on kind of things in a Zoom session when it's like this than if it would be, by their waist and that kind of stuff. Have you had that feedback from people that you train that actually it works quite well on Zoom?
It's made for Zoom, isn't it? It's absolutely made for it. But back to what you mentioned there, the pendulum. The pendulum absolutely is an idiomotor response. There's no argument there. In fact, if you get real close with the best technology, Adam, you'll like this, your camera zoom in, you'll see it's not the pendulum, it's their hand that moves to move the pendulum. So it's an idiomotor response from the client and the client's beliefs. The Swan is almost the opposite of that in many ways. Not always. In some cases, it will be like that. But in many other cases, one of the last things I tell them is, no, whatever happens, don't try and help me, but don't fight me. Just allow the hand to do its own thing. Oh, is that okay? And they go, yes. And then when it moves, they say, shit, man, I was fighting you all the way. That's very common. So it's the opposite of that pendulum thing. They are fighting not to make it move. And we even play this game, do we? It's normally played in the world of hypnosis. I understand that, but they are not in hypnosis. And I say, well, really try not to move your hand this time and see what happens. So that wonderful partner inside them, who could talk to me again by just giving me a nod, that would be great. The hand moves, and they start screaming. And of course, it's very common for the F word to suddenly come into the room at that point, because it's just
It gives them an experience, doesn't it? And that element of that magical, mystical part of hypnosis, which really captivates people, that, you know, whether it is the law of reverse effect or just kind of like being surprised at this kind of movement is kind of a wonderful thing to
absolutely
contribute to the change. And
if we can get a little bit if we can get a little bit spooky for just a second. I'm not really into woo-woo, but I guess I am in a way. I guess we all are in a little way. So, for example, when I'm talking to a client, if I go completely the opposite side of tech-wise, and I just say to them, you know, it's a funny thing, but I don't even need to hypnotize you to do this. In fact, I'm not even talking to you. I'm talking to that part inside you, that part that's inside you right now, looking at me through your eyes, and right this very second, it's saying, oh my God, he sees me. Now, at that point, Adam, I can tell you that 90% of the people will give me a smile at that point. But over the years now, I've come to ask myself the question, is it them that's smiling at me? So I try to be able to say, we'll just get spooky for just a second, because it's really, really quite bizarre. Well, and what happens next becomes more bizarre when they start to do things, to feel things that they were fighting against even. So it's an interesting one, yeah.
And Claudia, you'll remember this because I misinterpreted the bunny talk process by confusing it with the swan and thinking it's kind of like, because it's got the hand movement kind of like, yeah, like this, you know, for me it was kind of like, oh, it's an evolution. It's a slight variation of the swan, which of course it isn't. So for those listening, give us an introduction to where the bunny talk process came from and how it differs from the swan.
So yes, Adam, and you weren't the only one. Okay, many people thought that I was actually. They said, "Oh, what does Bob think to you doing the bunny talk because he's got the swan?" I went, "He's fine with it. He loves it because it's nothing like it." Oh, isn't it? No. So how did it begin? Okay, so if you do press your finger and thumb together, and of course, who remembers shadow puppets?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And most of us do. So it was something that I actually played with my daughter. And as just like Bob said at the beginning, it just became something that we did. He had no idea he was going to create the swan. I had no idea that as I was playing with my daughter, bunny rabbits, bunny shadow puppets, and we were talking to each other through this. And we played. I taught her the days of the week, months of the year, simple maths. And I had no idea that all that time ago, while we were pressing in our finger and thumb, that we were anchoring in safety, love, and security, unconditional love. And that is what the bunny talk process is based on. However, I have always been working with children. Now I've got 5 children. Okay. And it rains a lot in England. So we used to do a lot of inside games, and I would draw around their body and I would get them to fill it in, because it was just, we took a lot of time over that. As I became a hypnotherapist in England, that is actually how I started to see my children. Where is that thing in your body? What's it like? I got them to draw it out. And it became really interesting that I then brought the two together. When my daughter was 15, and we were here in America, she was going through a really rough time. And she came through to my room. It was New Year's Eve, sobbing. And if you've got children, you really do not want to hear this scary sob that she was actually sobbing. I got into bed with her. I held her and I said, "Can you tell me what it is?" And she couldn't tell me. And then don't ask me what made me do it. I did. I got my mummy bunny out, and she got her baby bunny out with the little ears down. And she told mummy bunny what had happened to her. And I just thought, oh, okay. And I did not react. I didn't respond because I knew not to, because mummy bunny never told her off. Mummy bunny, we'd always played. So Mummy Bunny listened. Of course, it was me, but we dissociated it out of us. And of course, Adam, that's what I do when I'm drawing around these bodies of children or even adults now. It brings it out onto the paper. And I was telling Cheryl Ellman this about this story with my daughter, because I was learning sleep talk with Cheryl, and she said to me, "You have to do something with that." And so I did. I wrote a book. It's called A Parent's Journey and the Bunny Talk Process. So it's got the whole story about it. And I thought that was just where it would go, because I thought it was just a really nice thing for parents to do around the world, play this game with their little 2, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, so that they could anchor in safety, love, and security, unconditional love, so that when they had a teenager, if something they needed a communication skill, all they needed to do was just bring out the bunny, and the child would remember, this is a safe place. I can now speak to my mummy or daddy. And that is where I thought it was going to stay. And then it was only when I had spoken about it at Hypnothoughts Live, my very first talk, so you always get about 25 minutes in your first talk. And I had other colleagues come up to me and they said, "Are you going to make that into a course?" And I said, "Well, no, because anybody can do it, shadow puppets." And then going back to where I draw around the bodies, yes, I can make this into a course. I will just add it in to how I work with children. And now I've introduced it where actually I add in the whole anchoring in, and I explain about, I call it poo on the amygdala. I've got a whole little thing for that. And it's all through play. But I've always played with children. It's always been through play. And so actually this whole process has been very easy for me, because it's just how I've always worked. And I've always wanted to see the parents first. And I actually have always drawn them these particular emotional intelligence diagrams. Like, it's my version of it. So that the parent goes, "Oh, it's us." And I say it in such a very clever, sneaky way that they actually are not realizing that I know it's them, but I'm saying it in a way that they go, "Oh, yes, it's us." Because I say, "Some parents do this." And then they go, "Oh, I do that." And they are honest. And sometimes they'll say, "Actually, that's what happened to me." "Oh my gosh, yeah, I think I do that too." And then what happens so often is I end up seeing the parents actually, and never the child, because it's, as we know, it's the parents that are creating the environment for the child. So I think that's the way to go. And but it's all through play. I do end up using the bunny talk on my adults as well, because it's natural age regression. Because when there's drawing, when there's markers, and I do a whole thing with toys as well, people just naturally go back to their inner child. And there's no formal hypnosis in it, but we all know that everything's hypnosis. When we're playing, we're in that state, we're in that zone, if you like. So yeah, I love it. It's very playful, it's very profound, and it works. And I do use bunny eye movements, okay? And the bunny can pull it out, and the bunny can put good things back in. So it's like pulling it out of the wherever it is. Often I pull it from the head, because that's where people feel a lot of things. Could be the gut, it could be the heart, but the bunny pulls it out. And then the bunny, if there's good things, because they do come in with good things, instead of say something like shame, they might come in with something like, "It wasn't my fault," or "let it go." And the bunny gives them that back. And then we anchor that in to their finger and thumb again. And
so it's a very versatile tool, because you're right. You know, if people are playing with puppets, generally it's a child when they do that. So it's age regression. It's level of disassociation. If you look at a ventriloquist, you know, people are looking at the ventriloquist dummy. They're not looking at the ventriloquist. You know, it's that element of, it kind of takes it from them, and as you say, anchoring lots of different things. Obviously, with your daughter, you did it actually with kind of puppets. When you're teaching it, do you recommend that people have puppets, or is it enough to kind of use the hand movement?
Okay, so I do have puppets, but I don't use them because actually, it's hopefully we would never lose our finger and thumb.
Mm,
Okay, but sometimes we don't always have the puppet with us, and it's so. But your finger and thumb, it's always there, and you can actually just add in anchors wherever you may be. So you are out and about and you see a glorious rainbow. What can you do? Quickly anchor it in. You see? So in my opinion, I think I just stick to the finger and thumb. But
so
yes, I do.
I have to ask this because I've got you both on the podcast at the same time. Have have you experimented with the bunny turning into the swan and the swan turning into the thing, or one arm being a swan and the other being the bunny? Have you played with kind of a hybrid, tag team of animal metaphor uh, protocols?
That's a very good point because actually you could bring out different parts there, couldn't you? And this is exactly what our workshop is going to be doing. All right. Bob is going to add his genius of the swan into my bunny. And we will be showing that how actually you can introduce the two together. And so it takes it to a whole new level with the expertise and Bob's skill and knowledge of the swan.
Yeah, and it would be a wonderful thing, I think, to see someone in bunny talk mode and suddenly be turned around and say, and now what we'd like to do is try this and see if while they're in bunny talk mode, they find a thing called the swan much, much easier than they normally would. Guess
Mm.
what? We don't know the answer to that, Claudia and I. We don't know, but we'd really like to find out. And we've got a funny feeling it's going to be quite exciting. So we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess to some extent you could have the swan or the swan communicating with the bunny in a way. You've got then almost like two levels of disassociation. So it's, I guess, going to be an experimental kind of thing. You get to figure out how to do this kind of stuff while you're doing it.
While we're teaching it, because this is where the magic happens, is that when you have a live workshop and you've got people feeling their feelings and they've got it out of them, and then if they have that, because which one is going to be the older part, which one's going to be the younger part, and how then are they then going to integrate? Because we know that if you are having parts, they've always got to be integrated back. However, of course, that's why you have to have a practitioner. It has to be taught correctly because of with parts, so it has to be integrated back, and can they and we know that can happen. Now I do that anyway with the toys when I've got various toys. However, how can there may well be just something different with the swan that I haven't even come across yet, and that is where it's going to be so exciting. So yes, it's going to be a very interesting workshop for those people who want to take it to the next level.
So I've seen you talk about the bunny talk for children and those with early onset dementia. Are there any other kind of use cases that you've seen that it works particularly well for?
Oh my gosh, pretty much everything, because you don't have to say the bunny, you can just use your finger if you want to, and then it's still I've got it, it's not bunny's got it. You just adapt it, you just adapt your words. And if I'm doing it online, you draw gingerbread men instead of drawing around the body. You get the person to draw their gingerbread man. And so it's completely adaptable to everything, because in my opinion, we feel things. Now I'm very kinesthetic, so would I use it with somebody who was more auditory and into their logical thing? Possibly not, but most of my clients that see me are very feeling. They sometimes there aren't the words for it. They just know it. It's that those words that are but that's not a word, is it? That those aren't words, but they are feelings. And where is that? Those guttural sounds, those frogs in your throat. Is that choking? And what else is it? Is it heavy? Is it so? You know, you is it heavy? Is it light? Is it cold? Tingly? Is it spiky? And people can generally get there with that. And now and then they own it and they're writing it all down. I mean, it's so exciting. I get quite excited about it, as you can tell.
Yeah, that's it. When you define those kinesthetic feelings, it kind of, it's like looking under the bed to see the monster. Once you define it, a lot of that kind of intensity can kind of go away. And it's what I got a sense from what you said before is that once you find that somatic feeling in the body then kind of picks it out and kind of moves it or changes it. And it sounds like you do lots of some modality changes there as well.
It's very somatic. There's loads of submodalities. It's a lot of NLP in it. I did tell Richard Bandler about it actually, and John Laval, and they absolutely loved it. Richard Bandler, I don't mind saying, he said to me that needs to be in every school. He loved it, so which is very exciting.
Amazing. And for you, Bob, like obviously you've had a very distinguished and long career as a therapist. What have you found the Swan particularly effective for, you know, compared to other things? Let's say, is there a particular kind of issue or area that you think, yeah, that would be, you know, for any therapist listening, they're like, when is it best to use the Swan?
An always boring answer. I almost want to apologize before I begin. You know, there's a saying out there. It's one of my wife. She used to teach psychology at university, and one of her favorite sayings was, we need to remember that everything in this world is a construct. It's a good saying, and it's a true saying. I mean, for example, I believe we've got over 800 therapies out there, and I'll bet you every one of these 800 people who constructed their therapy believe that for the most part, it can handle just about everything. I know that's not completely true, because someone will say, oh no, I don't use it for this, or I don't use it for that, so on and so forth. But I would probably be one of the majority who, through practice, the time I've spent with it now, knowing that so many tens of thousands who do it are all saying the same thing, that they find it can be at least useful with everything. We're not saying it's the best. We're not saying it's the best for this. We're saying it's pretty good with just about everything. I use it with kids. I used it with a kid yesterday who's terrified of swimming. And suddenly I've got this girl who won't talk to anybody online from 3,500 miles away, speaking away to me with this Swan saying, yes, she'll do it. Mom tells me today they went into the water. She seemed to enjoy it. And of course, it comes back to the creator, the therapist, me, the man who knows all, is sitting there, being able to nod his head and smile and explain what it's all about. When at the end of the day, in truth, I don't really know what it's all about and how that worked. It's almost like there's something within the Swan, and maybe within all these other 800 therapies, that's stronger than all of us, that knows things, that hasn't taught us everything about that particular therapy. I don't know. But simple answer to your question, no, we'll have a go at anything. I often see, you must do too, you'll see these things online, but with certain different groups that will say, no, you don't want to do it for that, or I don't want to do it for this. Somebody was horrified, for example, on Saturday night at him to discover that I work with paedophiles. They found that, in fact, were quite ugly towards me. Yeah. And I wanted to tell them that paedophilia is an illness, and I've got a person who's ill, and their doctors have put them on to me and said, can you help this man? He doesn't touch kids. He was never going near a kid. If he did, I would take him to the police. So, but here's somebody with an illness. Well, did I do the Swan with paedophiles? Yes, I'll do this with just about anybody. In other words, I'll work with anybody. Every time somebody says, it's not good for that, I often think, why would you have a therapy that's not good for something without trying it? So yes, the Swan's really great for lots of things. And I get some good news as well, as I'm sure Claudia has had already, and will get in the future. They'll tell us it worked for something that we haven't used it for. And we'll go, what? And it's lovely. You get this lovely, nice surprise, and it worked well with that as well. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, amazing. So tell us more about the event that you've got, because I think you said, Claudia, is it January that it takes place? When does it take place?
Yes, Saturday, January the 3rd. It's in Southampton, the Holiday Inn, just near where Bob lives. And so, yes, it's Saturday. Well, I'll be there Friday night. Bob will be there Friday night. So people can come and join then if they want to. Bob's going to come along with his guitar, and they'll be singing. Don't ask me to sing. I'm not very good. But yeah, it will be a lot of fun, because actually, again, in my opinion, it's those conversations that you have actually outside of the the conference, when you're at conferences and learning. It's the ones in the hallways.
They're nearly always the best part of the workshop, the Friday night just before it begins.
Mm.
I'd love to say why that is. It sounds dreadful, but I tell you what, it's absolutely fantastic. It really is.
Mm.
Well, because I think it's the excitement for the what's coming up, the anticipation. That word, I love the word anticipation. And then, of course, the Saturday, the workshop will be fun. It just will be. It's very hands-on. And then there's loads of bonuses, but of course we're going to be there on the Saturday night as well. So it's that collaboration. It's those meaningful memories that people make when you are actually together, and you cannot do that online.
There. So it's an in-person event in Southampton. It's a one-day event, but you're encouraging people to definitely be there on the Friday before, just to kind of get the magic that happens. And who's it for? Because some people will be listening that they like listening to hypnotherapy, but they're not a hypnotherapist. Some people will be beginning therapists, other people very experienced. Is it for a particular person at a certain level in their therapy career, or could people that aren't therapists also benefit?
Well, it will be cheaper than having therapy. So if they want to have any, they can come along and be worked on. Simple as that, and meet people. And then, of course, if there's any coaches who are business coaches, they will be coming along and meeting them too. These are two fabulous tools. I believe one of the main things that people are going to get from this is you kick up the backside to start your new year. Because we all know that when you have that at the beginning of the year, it sets you up. And we have some fabulous bonuses here, because Bob is offering another 1 hour conversation with him to help you see where you're at in your business. That's a bonus. And then they get the 2-day online workshop with me in March, because I do want to make sure that everybody understands all my version of the emotional intelligence. And because it does take a long time, well, not a long time, but I want to make sure people know this process well and feel it and understand it. Plus there's the Facebook group. So actually, if anybody is a newbie, they can come. It's for coaches, it's for therapists. I piloted this to 12 therapists in America 2 years ago. So it's still a fairly brand new, all of this. And they loved it, and they are using it. And they are the hardest people to sort of coach, if you like, of the therapists. And they got it. They understood it. So, and they could see the benefit of using this with children. At that point, I didn't know it was going
So if I could slip in there, because you're frozen, by the way. Oh, no, you're back again.
Did I freeze?
Yeah. But you're okay again.
Okay. So I was going to say at that point, I didn't know it was going to be useful for inner child work as well. It was only when I was presenting on this in at Hypnothoughts and at other places, at conferences, and people were having transformations from something that they had when they were a child. We all just went, oh, this isn't just for children. This is inner child work. This is big. And so, yeah, it's very exciting. So people who want to work with adults as well, you don't have to specialize in children, but you could now. You could if you wanted to, because we do know that people will actually care for their children more than themselves, which is a shame.
Very true. So we'll make sure there is a link to the event in the show notes. So anyone listening right now that you want to learn more about this, dates, location, prices, we'll make sure there's a link there so you can kind of figure out all of that. It's January. You're going to learn about the Swan. You're going to learn about the bunny talk. And it seems like it's going to be good fun as well. Is there anything that either of you want to add at this point?
Well, just as Claudia froze there, and I came in. I was going to say that we'll be throwing in a couple of bonuses as well, Adam. I mean, last year I did a couple of things face to face. I got two fairly good sized groups to come to Southampton all the way to spend one day with me. And that was a whole day. Can you imagine that? 8 hours on ice breaking, just on ice breaking. Now, I think a 1 hour would be a good session on ice breaking. 3 to 4 hours would be ridiculous, but I spent 8 hours on ice breaking. And so we'll do a little bit about that while we're there. By that, I mean, I'm going to show everybody who turns up, I will give them 3 things that I promise they will use every day, if they like, for the rest of their life. And they'll blow people away with it. Just 3 small ice breaks. So for me, in my nature, the kind of person I am, I open up everything with an ice break. Every session I begin with, I've got some lines or some things I'm going to do that will break the ice completely so that the person sitting across from me simply goes, ah, and then we can get into it. So, hey, why are you here anyway? So we're going to have I'm going to have a real special session on the ice breaks alone. We'll see where we get from there, but I'm sure it'll be fun.
Amazing. Well, it's very exciting. We'll make sure the link is in the description. So anyone listening, definitely check that out. Claudia, Bob, very highly respected in the world of hypnotherapy. You're going to learn a lot in one day. And it sounds like the bonuses are going to be very useful as well. Claudia, Bob, thank you so much for joining me on The Hypnotist today.
Thanks for having us, Adam.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.